I call Meka Waitiri.
I te māngai te whare, tēnā kuia, I ngā membro te whare nei, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko Rangitāne o Manawatu, tēnā koutou haramai, tēnā koutou haramai, tēnā koutou hoki mai. Tēnā koutou haramai I runga I te kaupapa whakahirahira, tō rā, tō tātou rā, kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kei te mihi. Mr Speaker, it is indeed my honour and privilege to rise and contribute to the third and final reading of the Rangitāne o Manawatu Claim Settlement Bill. And Sir, when most Māoris meet one another, they generally try and get a relationship going. And while I've been sitting here listening to all the speeches previously, thoughts came to my mind, and I want to share a couple of connections with the Manawatu. The first one is I used to play netball many years ago, Sir, and we used to often go to Manawatu, and that was one of our stomping grounds many years ago when I played for Wellington. So I immediately thought about the very windy conditions of the Manawatu netball courts. You know, we did really well there, Jono, in Manawatu. So that thought came to mind. The thought that whenever I came to Manawatu or Palmerston North, my late uncle and auntie, Judy and Boy to us, or Bill Nikora, was often the first home that we visited when we went to Palmerston North. And then I thought about the story, not specifically related to Rangitāne, but Rangitāne ki Tamaki Nui Arua, Rangitāne ki Wairarapa, is when my grandmother, the late Ruruhira Robin, was picked up often to go to iwi huis, and it was often either Kahungunu on one side or Rangitāne on the other side. And anyway, the story got relayed to me that she got collected by the Kahungunu side of her to go to a iwi hui to go and vote. And then when it came to the voting on some particular kaupapa, my grandmother voted for the Rangitāne side. And it caused quite a stir for my Kahungunu side when they asked my grandmother, why did you vote against the very people who picked you up? She said she was Rangitāne and she was Kahungunu. At the end of the day, she made the best choice at that particular hui. Sir, these are just some stories that I'm trying to share in this House that make some relevance to the people that are in our gallery to hear the third and final reading. Sir, every treaty settlement is unique. Every treaty settlement is unique. And when I read the Rangitāne o Manawatu, and I want to acknowledge the leader of the Green Party because she picked up a lot of the kōrero I'm going to wanted to talk about, and that was the concessions done by the Rangitāne people. And Sir, I want to briefly talk about the compromises that the Rangitāne did in relation to the cross claims. And so when I look at their particular settlement, there was a number of cross-claim issues that they dealt with, and I want to acknowledge the way in which they dealt with it. And so I just want to quickly mention what these issues were that were raised through their particular settlement, and that's the eastern boundary of the Rangitāne o Manawatu area of interest. And clearly that's with their whanaungas of Rangitāne ki Wairarapa, Rangitāne ki Tamaki Nui Arua. It is pleasing to know that they worked out a settled position where they amended the area, the shape of the area to be invested in Rangitāne o Manawatu in relation to the Tararua Ranges, and by excluding areas, Sir, in the Ruahine Forest Park, included in the proposed Rangitāne Tamaki Nui Arua settlement from the Rangitāne o Manawatu statutory acknowledgement for the park. Issue number 2, Sir, was the inclusion of Tangi Moana Crown Forest licensed land in the Rangitāne o Manawatu settlement, obviously cross-claimed by Y972, which is the Ngāti Kaupata people, and of course there was some interest expressed by the Ngāti Raukawa ki te Tonga in relation to the Tangi Moana Crown Forest licensed land. And Sir, I'm pleased to say that Rangitāne absolutely put up the proposition, rightfully so, using the principle of ahika in the region since the 1600s, nearly 250 years, Sir. So I want to acknowledge that on the basis of using what is a natural tikanga in Māoridom, the principle of ahika, then the Tangi Moana Crown Forest licence was included in the Rangitāne or Manawatu settlement. I want to note that the Crown has offered commercial redress, and it seeks to balance the interests of all iwi in the area with the underpinning rationale that commercial redress is intended to contribute to re-establishing iwi's economic base. Essentially, sir, I take that as saying for Ngāti Kaupata and Ngāti Raukawa ki te tonga, don't worry, the Crown have got you covered. That's right, yes, thank you for endorsing that sentiment, Minister. The other key point was the effect of the Rangitāne or Manawatu exclusion redress on other groups. Similar to the first issue around Ngāti Kaupata and obviously Ngāti Raukawa, it's good, sir, that both Ministers of Treaty Settlements, the Ministers of Conservation and the Minister of Māori Affairs have agreed to a package to modify one of the key aspects in regard to the Himatangi Bush Scenic Reserve, so that the right of first refusal, sir, be removed and the overlay classification be reduced to only 50% of the reserve. And lastly, sir, the point I want to pick up that's unique in this particular settlement is the inclusion of Ngāti Tauira Hapu and the Rangitāne or Manawatu claims. And just to acknowledge that in the Rangitane's own submission, they acknowledge that Ngāti Hapa, Ngāti Tauira is a hapu of Ngāti Apa. They don't profess to be an exclusive association with Ngāti Tauira, and also acknowledge the rangatira to rangatira marriages between Ngāti Tauira and obviously Rangitāne or Manawatu. So, sir, the point of why I've raised these, because this is the principles of negotiating when we come to treaty settlement, sir, and that is manaaki tangata, manaaki kaupapa, manaaki whakapapa, that if you get the people at the table, if you give them the right information and enough time, sir, I am convinced that iwi will come to the right conclusion, particularly when it comes to treaty settlements. And no better has this been demonstrated, sir, than through the Rangitāne or Manawatu settlement. They have shown, like others have said, absolute compassion, patience, and an absolute belief that through our own processes of negotiation, our tikanga process of negotiation, based on those principles of manaaki tangata, manaaki kaupapa, manaaki whakapapa, I think that we have got to a very, very just conclusion. Sir, that's my contribution for the reading of this third bill, to thank the Rangitāne people, of course, for your patience. Definitely want to acknowledge those that are no longer here. To Danelle, Morris Takarangi, who's been mentioned, thank you very much for the leadership you have shown in getting your people to this final place. I want to thank all the Minister and obviously the hard work of the Māori Affairs Select Committee for the work that you've done. Finally, sir, my closing remark, there has been some points said that more MPs should be in the House when we have treaty settlement reading. I concur with that. I want to acknowledge my colleague Pēni Henare for his raising this issue. It is something that all members of this House should be part of in the passage of any treaty bills. But particularly last week with Taranaki, and of course we've got Rangitāne here today, it's important and moot point that we remind ourselves, sir, why we come to this House, and when we pass important legislation like treaty bills, we should be here to celebrate the successful passage of this. Nō reira, e te māngai te whare, i ngā membo te whare, i ngā iwi motu o Rangitāne o Manawatu, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.